So what happens after the current cabinet collapses? That's imminent. There are two types of government, as you might have known, a majority government and a minority one. A majority of 112 MPs or more is known as an absolute majority. Now please don't confuse that with the phrase special majority, which is a two-third majority. So what is a majority government? A majority government is formed when one party or one coalition has won more than 112 MP seats in the Dewan Rakyat. What's a minority government? There, no party has a clear majority. The only way to govern is for several parties to come together to form a temporary alliance until the next election. Let's look at an example. Suppose three parties A, B, and C contest in national elections. Party A has won 80 seats, B 60, and C 50. However, for the sake of argument, let's say that independent MPs have won 32 seats. This results in a hung parliament. No one party has an absolute majority. That leaves either A or B to work with C in combination with independent MPs as a safety net. Then Party A may invite Party C and independent MPs to join it. Can it be done? Is it constitutional? What about the argument that the Constitution does not allow minority governments? There is no basis for this argument. Our Constitution is silent on it, but it also does not forbid it. All that is needed is for a group of MPs of greater number than 111 to come together and express support for a single leader. This is the spirit of Article 43, Clause 2. Now, countries with similar Westminster model constitutions such as ours have been doing it for ages. The important point is the coalition MPs must cross the threshold absolute majority of 112 MPs or more. How are minority governments formed? Well, by cooperating with component parties on many fronts. They may bind their marriage of convenience into a confidence and supply agreement. Must confidence and supply agreements be in writing? No. A legal document is not always necessary. In Canada, Stephen Harper's Conservative Party governed from 2006 to 2011 without any kind of formal agreement. There, the agreement worked on a case-by-case basis. Why are the words confidence and supply used? The word confidence means the minority parties agreed to support the leading party's nominee as Prime Minister. If the leaders challenged in a parliamentary vote of confidence, all component parties will support the leader, hence confidence. Similarly, the minority parties will support the government through its budget. As you know, the budget is known as a supply bill, hence the word supply. How long do these agreements last? Usually until the next election. What are the usual terms in these agreements? Well, it depends on who the coalition members are and what are their political motivations. Such agreements usually deal with a shared list of priorities. Cabinet positions are shared by agreement. Minor parties will ask their favorite subjects to be treated in the way they promised their electorate. For example, economic and foreign policy, gender equality, minority rights, environmental issues, or anti-hopping laws. Sometimes the agreement might provide how different members of the coalition can vote on different bills as they see fit. Independent MPs may have a right to negotiate with the government before exercising their right to either vote for or refuse to vote for government bills, for example, on environmental laws. How does it work out in practice? Usually, the government cannot rely 100% on all the votes of its coalition members, especially for different bills. This means how many votes the government may receive in the Dewan Rakyat on any bill under challenge may change according to the subject matter of the bill. Can the agreement prevent the government from suddenly exercising its power to call for an election? Well, there are 2 points here. Often this is agreed to. Mostly, that this is an inherent right has been widely accepted. Second, there is a legal argument that a prime minister, such as Tan Sri Mahathir, who has lost a no confidence motion or his majority, has no right to advise on the dissolution of parliament unless parliament is unable to function or when no alternative government can be formed. This Tan Sri Mahathir has taken as an argument. That argument is not applicable in Malaysia because there is no evidence that other parties in combination cannot form a government. There is also no evidence that parliament cannot function despite being temporarily closed for disinfection under the PCDA. Hung parliaments and minority governments are common. You'd be surprised to know that a single party government is an aberration in Germany, in Australia, in the Netherlands and Scandinavia. Even in countries which follow the Westminster system, such as Malaysia, where single-party dominance was once taken for granted, Barisan Nasional, hung parliaments are now the norm. Over the course of the 20th century, even the UK has had several hung parliaments. As you might recall, after the May 2010 UK general election, there was a hung parliament. A coalition was formed between the Conservative Party and the Liberal Democratic Party. Do coalition governments work? They do. For example, the 2010 coalition impressed many observers with its energy and clarity of vision, as well as the strong personal chemistry and trust between senior figures of the two parties. Although it's also been noted that there were many difficult tests. New Zealand coalitions have been exceedingly successful. As a whole, it's been said, multi-party governance in New Zealand has led to relatively stable and durable governments, and that overall, there's been no serious decline in New Zealand government's ability to enact the legislative programs they have set out to enact. What are the disadvantages? Well, fluidity leads to instability. Because of this constant pull and push of different members of the coalition, there is always a fluidity in the government's core strength at differing times during its tenure. This creates instability among the majority and can cause governments to fall. The UMNO pullout is an example. Yet Canada has had hung parliament since 2004. Canadian minority governments have been regarded as having been highly successful and effective governments, and although at that time the current period of minority rule was not generally seen as a success, so in Canada, at any rate, the view is minority governments are unstable and less productive compared to governments with a secure majority. So let's think about that. Are two-party systems more successful? Well, the two-party system has not produced any greater advantage over a multi-party system. Under a two-party system, even an advanced nation can vote in the wrong leader. You know who I'm talking about. The more advanced a nation is, the more varied are its people's views. This manifests itself when the nation votes in a multi-party government. A coalition government forces politicians to work together for the betterment of the people. MPs are constantly being audited by competing coalitions. In conclusion, right now the people are in trouble. The economy has taken a terrible beating. There has been a total absence of leadership for the last 27 months. MPs are jumping parties purely to enrich themselves. They are not interested in the affairs of the people. An emergency has been created purely for the survival of a party with no majority. It has had a bloated cabinet of ministers who've been busy feathering their own nests. Such a government has no moral authority to remain in power, and MPs who have supported this government have no business sitting in any coalition with the opposition. However, if it takes only a coalition government to pull through to the next election, then we should not reject it. Thank you very much. Subscribe, like, and comment and share widely. Good night.